Thank you so much for coming out and being with us. I am honored tonight to get to travel with Javita Epps, who is part of our global shared trade team, and she is a graduate of the program this year, of our 2-year residential program. And Tracy Warfield, who has been with us and is one of the survivor leaders for 14 years. And she is one of the and she's old. Everything tonight's going to be about age, I'm sure, because that's all I'm thinking about. She is one of the manufacturing directors, and she does all the training for new women who are coming off the streets and teaches them the process of manufacturing and how to come to work on time and leave gratefully, all of those things that we need to do when we're working and living together in community. And Carly's my first time to ever get to travel together, and I'm thrilled. She helps ship and pack all the products for the 480 retail outlets we have, and she is the mom of a beautiful 2-year-old daughter and is, how many years part of Magdalene in Thistle Farms? A little over 3 years, so just 1 year out from graduation. And seriously, feel free to keep your phones on. I love the ringer tones. There's our hashtags. If you are tweeting or putting us out there, we would love for you to do that. That helps us. We are truly social entrepreneurs, and to be here is a great, great gift. And we are excited about our partnership with the United Methodist Church here. And to start it off here and get to see the Clinton Library and to be welcomed into this, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Skip. Thank you so much for having us. There's where we started. It's a very faint map of the United States of America, and that's us at Thistle Farms. And we started in 1997. I was a transplant from the north when I was 4.5 years old. My dad was an Episcopal priest. He and my mom packed up 5 small kids and they moved south. He was going to start a church, and it ended up that he was killed the year that they moved by a drunk driver. And so my mom was 35 with 5 small kids, and we were thrown into poverty, into the vulnerability that community offers sometimes. The person that took over the church where my dad was founding the Episcopal Church began sexually abusing me in the church, and it lasted for several years. And as I went through, I had a lot of other supportive communities that really got me through it. And I knew even after I was ordained into the church that really what I wanted to do was open a sanctuary for women who had some of that same history. And while my story doesn't even begin to compare with the women I've served for the last 20 years, I knew that that's what I wanted to do, is to have community be really powerful on behalf of women, and to understand that the truth is, if you rape women and rape girls, you can kill a whole village. But if we can come together and heal the women and girls, you can heal the whole village. And I believe that now more than ever. And so we started with the tagline, "Love is the most powerful force for change in the world." I had no idea we were going to start a business. It was really just a residential place for women to be. But over the years, what we discovered was, because on average, the women that we were serving first hit the streets between the ages of 14 and 16 years old, that while they were doing amazing work in recovery, in therapy, in restitution with the courts and their family, they were still dirt poor. And we needed to start our own business. They had many of the women didn't have backgrounds that would encourage an employer to hire them. And we thought, we can just make stuff and sell it. You could not major in social entrepreneurship when we started in the late 90s. There was no such thing. It was more like the church bazaars. You just make some stuff and talk your friends into buying it. That's how our amazing business plan looked. Let's make something, and we just chose candles, and we chose body balms, partly because candles have one ingredient. and they have a long shelf life. And body bombs, you could get the recipe off the internet. And both of them, we chose really healing products for the earth, and we had a great story to tell with it, and people started hoping and buying with us, and enabled us to build more houses and to begin to branch out. So these are now our 25, 26 sister communities around the United States. It's an affiliated network, meaning that it's not a franchise. It is a relationship that we have to help foster other housing first programs for women coming off the streets. And really what it looks like, the basic core values and the way that it works, is that women come in for 2 years. It's rent-free, and there's no authority in the house. If you have a background in sexual violence, you know that authority is one of the biggest triggers. And so it's really great to have a community come together and to think about what it looks like to really support one another, and for all of us to have a voice in where that is leading. In Arkansas, in Northwest Arkansas, there are now 3 programs that have opened up. We have been to Arkansas several times to help start those, and we've invited people from Arkansas all the way to Nashville, Tennessee. It's not a bad drive. We did it earlier today. But it's a great way to then remember you're not doing this work alone. It's hard work. And for a lot of us, when you talk about global human trafficking and domestic trafficking, addiction and violence against women, you're talking about huge issues, and it feels a little bit overwhelming to get involved. What difference does it make if I open a house for 5 women? How does that help impact this global problem? And so what happens is when we band together, we realize it makes a huge difference. And we begin to have a powerful voice, and it's a way for us to engage a global issue on a local level together. That it's not about one program getting really big, it's about all of us being a network where we can have referrals, where we can have support. It's hard work. I mean, when there's a relapse, it undoes a community. When somebody goes back out onto the streets, they can be murdered. In the last few weeks in our community, one of the great leaders that has been a part of this for a long time went back on the streets, and she was within a breath of being murdered. It was just a horrible situation, and she's safe right now, but it takes a toll. And to have a community of people around the country that you can call on and be with and be supportive of reminds you that we can keep going and we can keep loving and working together. So then what happened was people started loving our products. One of the questions that we often get asked, there's a bunch of questions that you get if you're a social entrepreneur. Are you sustainable? Are you scalable? We are yes, 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 yes on that. And then, you don't have to do that in the Q&A. I'm just telling you that's yes. But people really do want to hope with you, and they get excited and they love the products. And so we started getting more and more outlets. Whole Foods has been a big part of that. We're in about 120 Whole Foods stores. And our national sales director is a woman named Katrina. And Katrina came into the program around 2004. And she came in, and when she first came in the program, you know, one of the things that we do is we have all these classes while you're there for 2 years. And one of them is financial management and learning how to budget and all of those things. And the person who was the mentor for that group said to get passed out 3x5 cards and said, draw your dream. Draw your dream. If you can draw it and see it, then you can work towards achieving that. And so people were going around drawing the dream. And Katrina's daughter, who was with her, whose name was Ebony, whispers to her mom, draw a house. Please, Mama, draw a house. Ends up that Whole Foods becomes a part of what we're doing more and more. Katrina, who is a great director, looked all over the country and decided to hire her daughter as the Whole Foods rep for Thistle Farms. So straight out of college, Ebony comes to work for us. And Ebony's there for about a year, and Whole Foods says, you have an opportunity to not just be in 120 stores in 2016. We'll put you globally in all our stores for the holidays of 2016. All you need to do is fly to Anaheim and do a presentation. So Ebony was like, no way. That's so scary. You imagine a year out of college and you're going to present to the entire buyers of all the regions of Whole Foods and do a presentation that could change us from 120 stores to about, it's close to 500 stores. So Javita went with Ebony. They went out there, and I was like, Ebony, if you just stand up there and speak your truth, just speak what happens when the community doesn't give up on people. Speak your truth about what it means for us to go back to the streets and remember that women do recover, and women do heal, and women can help lead this country in a way where they're not just being served, but they are serving others in a powerful way, and what that has meant to you. Ebony goes out there, she nails it. And we got the word 2 weeks ago that every Whole Foods store is going to carry our products now. So that customer base, I know, right? So really all that means is we need to raise another $1 million to build a bigger facility to make all the products, which is always the way in this world, isn't it? And the way that, this will be, I can't even imagine what it will look like. It'll just look like red U.S. in a good way. Just teasing. But what that has meant is that we've had to be really strategic in what we're doing. We have to figure out how it is that we are growing from there to there to there. And these are some of the 4 areas that we're really focusing on, and hopefully not only be duplicating our housing model, but also be able to have manufacturing centers for other places. So that on the West Coast we can have cafes, we can be manufacturing some of the candles. In Atlanta, we can start manufacturing some of the bath and body care products, and we can also have regional sales teams, because it's a lot to ask people to do a social enterprise and do the residential piece. And so to figure out how to partner with that has become a big focus for what we're doing. About 2008, we started expanding globally and started becoming friends and making partners with groups who are also yearning to have social enterprise be a part of the journey of recovery. We were getting calls from all over, and the very first place we went was Rwanda. A group of women who had survived the genocide had banded together. They had gone back out into the fields where they had dug up the bones of their children and spouses and went and planted healing herbs, and they were making oils. And they needed a North American distributor and partner. And you can imagine how bad off they were if they were coming to us to be that person. So we were like, we are going to figure this out. And we are really happy to travel with Abby, who is with us, who runs the whole shared trade division for us and has helped foster and work on all these products. All the shared trade products, well, not all of them, some of them we have here for sale tonight that represent some of these groups around the world. But the idea in Love is Good Business is that it's a non-competitive model. We think in the social justice world, it's not a competitive sport. That we all do better when we're partnering together. Our markets increase. We are able to expand our reach and tie people in, and it strengthens every single group. So not just in the U.S., but around the globe. We were just in Ecuador a few weeks ago, and we Skype. So the women of Thistle Farms are Skyping with the women who are working in Ecuador. People can share stories, share hopes, and it feels like it's not just us out in the middle of here, in the middle of, rural Ecuador. This is the same story you hear in Rwanda, the same story you hear in other places. But our first venture into Ikarizi in Rwanda, when we started, bringing the geranium oil back, we were thrilled. I mean, it is an amazing product that they make. Geranium is good for so many things, but it's especially powerful bug repellent. Y'all all know that, right? In Arkansas, you should know what your natural bug repellents are. There's no excuse for that kind of ignorance in this day and time with access to the internet. So we were really thrilled. And we're like, we're going to blend this into a great product. We're going to sell it all over the country. That very first time after we brought it back, one of the things that we were doing is we were going into almost every women's prison. Well, not almost every. We spent a year going into many of the women's prisons in the U.S. to tell the story about what hope and love looks like when women come together. First place we went was Houston, Texas. They have a prison there. Anybody from Houston here? It was in August, and they don't have any air conditioning in the prison. And the women are working in turnip fields outside with guards on horseback. And they pulled a group of women in just about the size of this crowd in a room like this. And the guards on horse, between the turnips, the manure from the horses, and all the sweat, when you walked into the room, you could smell it. And we passed out all our papers, and we said, we're here to talk about hope. And the woman that was sitting right on the front row just took the paper and she laid it over her face, and she said, what is that smell? It smells so good. And what had happened was, in all our excitement and coming back from Rwanda and starting this tour, and we were pretty much immune at that point to geranium smell. It had leaked into everything we had packed, and it had gotten into the paper. And it was a real life-changing experience for me. I was thinking about how we worry about how little we have, or we worry about our impact, or we worry about does anything work? Are we effective? Are we capable? All these things that keep us from doing this work. And there I was watching this woman who was breathing in a fragrance of healing, and thinking about the women in Rwanda who never gave up. After a genocide, after surviving a genocide, 30 women coming together to form a cooperative and going out into those fields and making oil, and how we brought a kilo of it back to the U.S. across the ocean. And then how another group of women who had survived life, on the short side of justice, on the underside of bridges, on the inside of prison walls, on the backside of anger, who did not give up and believed that love heals, blended them together. It got shipped to Texas, where a drop of it made its way through a prison wall so a woman could just get a whiff of it. And how, if a drop of oil can make that journey and make such a difference, with all our resources and all our hope and all those people, what we are capable of when we really do believe how powerful love can be and community can be, and how it can be a model for good business. And it really helped clarify for me that however big or however small anything is, if we do it with intention and do it well, it can work. The next thing that we did is start then inviting people to come to Nashville. That number now is closer to 2,700 people who have come through. And what we did is we opened up a cafe, and we started feeding people, and we started saying, we can all do this together, and we can do it well. We can learn how to use economic resources. We can figure out what our ideals are and what their value is in the marketplace, and we can start making a difference. So the cafe that we opened, we said that our core principles were healing, story, hospitality, and Chado, the way of tea. And that we were going to open up this place, and we were going to remind everybody that we're not a grassroots movement, we're just like a tea leaf movement, where you can drink a cup of tea, you can help a group of women that's one of our partners in Mexico or in Uganda. We can share this cup, we can savor it, we can love it, and we can share a story. And we had this beautiful idea of this cafe we wanted to build. But you know how most things are, is when you're in the work of justice, and you're in this work of trying to be in public service, that your ideals are much better than your resources. I know that's probably not true for y'all, but for me, it's been true. And like people will give you like a small gift and they're like, do something amazing with it. You know, and it's like, how are you supposed to build this beautiful dream cafe when you get a flooded old beauty shop is what we got. And that was after the flood in Nashville in 2010, and it sat like that for about 3 years. And what you realize is that what we had to do at least was really count on a wider community. If we want to be transformative in business, if we want to be transformative in culture, that we need a lot of people on our team and we need a strong support group. So we had probably 200 people in Nashville, Tennessee that came together and agreed to lay floors, to hang chandeliers. We had a campaign just to collect the teacups so we wouldn't have to buy any, all honoring survivors. And we had teacups from around the world that came in with stories that you would not believe that were so beautiful, from internment camps and refugees, to my grandmother, to my sister, to a woman I remember, to a broken teacup that somebody had hung on to and realized how beautiful it was. And so that was able to transform into that. And the other great thing about it is when you work in this way that is loving and community, what happens is when you open the doors, you already have a customer base. If we had gone out and just raised the money without ever having engaged people in a really compassionate and loving way, we wouldn't have had the customer base. And it has been self-sustaining since we started this cafe. So everybody that laid a plank of that floor, and that's Al Gore Sr.'s father, Al Gore Sr.'s warehouse old floor from his tobacco barn. Tongue and groove, pine, impossible to lay. No one would want to lay that floor. The contractors wouldn't have laid it. But a nice, beautiful group laid it. Every one of them comes in and they bring friends and they're like, I laid that floor. And you're like, maybe. The other thing that happens, I think, in business too often is we think that lavishness and being lavish and being economical live on two sides of the spectrum. And what we have found is that the closer that we bring those together, the better we do. When we realize that being lavish in the way we love, in the way we serve each other, in the way we sit together, the better it is for our economics. And you don't usually get that when you want to build a shelter for homeless people, imagine you're building an organ in a cathedral. Build it like that and watch how the money comes in and the community gets excited and comes around that kind of vision. When we first built one of our homes in 2005, we designed $1 million home that would serve 8 women. And, basically you could say, well, you could build a home for half that amount for twice as many people. And you can build anything you want. And our idea was to build something really beautiful and to not take any secondhand furniture but have design and to have an interior garden and to make it something where people can remember their loveliness and their worthiness. Since that time, if you do the math on it, $1 million home for 8 women that we paid for up front, we house women for less than half the cost that you can house the same number of women in prison on an annual basis. It is very economical and it is very lavish, and people heal and people thrive in those environments. 80% of the women who come into the program graduate 2 years later. That's a huge number, and if y'all are in any way a clapping people, that would be an amazing place to clap. Happy to just to give you cues when I want you to say, that's amazing. So what we do every day is the circle is our big symbol, and we start every day in a circle, and we light a candle, and those are the candles, one of our first products, and we've done it every day. And again, you might think, well, for a manufacturing company, it's not a very efficient way to start the day. But it's truly efficient. And we light the candle, and we say we light this candle for the woman who is still on the streets, for the woman trying to find her way home. That we remember we're lighting this candle for the next woman coming through that door. who doesn't even know that there's a whole community preparing for her. We had a new group of 4 women who came to work last month at Thistle Farms, all 4 brand new, and the first woman sat down and I just said, you have no idea how many candles we've been lighting waiting for you to get here. You know, and she just wept. She is so grateful to be in a place that is safe. She's going to have a paycheck. She's not going to have to go back to an old John and try to hustle some money. She's not in a halfway house where she's going to need to go back out just to get enough money to stay in that house. She is not going to have to rely on family that may or may not be in the same journey of recovery that she is in. She's going to start making choices. She's going to pick out what her child is wearing. She's going to pick out what her mode of transportation is. She is going to pick out what food she eats and how she is going to spend her free time. The same things we all want in our life. Last year, in this past year, we were able to put in survivors' pockets, because of this work, in survivors' pockets, $850,000. We were able to give back to Nashville. We don't take any federal or state funding at all. And just by being us in the community of Nashville, oh, now y'all are going crazy. Because of being in Nashville and where we are able to gift back to the city in savings and in actual dollars, whether we're collecting them in tourism dollars or taxes or court restitution costs. We were able to give back more than $750,000 to the city. So it's not that we think we're saying love works and love heals in some really Pollyannic way. It is really practical, it is valuable, it is powerful, and it gives you a different voice. And I don't believe that if we were doing this in a traditional business model and trying to do it on the cheap, it would have ever worked. I really think that the time and energy spent in building community in a beautiful way, in a loving way, has transformed how we do the work. This is just a couple comparisons. We are off the charts from this for this year. We've just finished our numbers for the end of 2015, and we're growing steadily now for 3 years at over 35% for every year of growth. And what that means for us, we have a 3-pronged approach. We do events like this where our margins are the very best because we're selling directly to people, and the money is spent employing women to do the sales. It is educating the public, and we get 100% on the retail value. We do internet. We lose money a lot on shipping, but it's still a great place, and those numbers have gone up really high. And then the last place is in our retail stores where the margins are, 50%. And we didn't make those margins for a long time. That our costs, we had to supplement to make those costs. But because of the growth, we're able to buy so much better. I mean, just our cost per product has gone down tremendously. The woman that makes the candles, the head of it, there's 2 women now who are employed. We just hired a second woman to make candles. We sold $420,000 just in candles last year, and that was up from about $120,000 the year before. So that's some of the rate of growth that we're talking about as a company, and we can match it candle per candle. We are not afraid of growth. We have never been afraid of growth. We're afraid of not growing, I think, because there are more than 100 women on the waiting list. But the woman that was the head of the candle division, Ty, shares the story of many of the women who went to the streets really young. She says when other young women were trying to figure out, what prom dress to buy, she had been hiding in a closet for several years after middle school, trying to hide from her stepfather, and finally went to the streets about 14, 15 years old, began dealing drugs and selling her body under the guidance of a drug dealer, and was arrested. She has spent most of her years in her 20s in prison. She came out, she came into Magdalene and Thistle Farms. Magdalene is the residential piece of Thistle Farms. She came in, she was doing beautifully. She started making candles and being the candle maker, which is just a huge honor. And she had one more charge pending. And we have a really good relationship basically with most DAs. Very good relationship. We just had a group of DAs from New York who are amazing. The story I'm fixing to tell, I'm saying all that because I'm fixing to tell you a story about a bad DA. So she had one last charge pending. She had served many years in prison. She had been out for a year and a half. She was going to the Rape and Sexual Abuse Center. She was getting her health, her physical health back. She was working. She was getting a paycheck. She was making amends with the community that she had abandoned. They brought her back in on this charge. We went and talked about how, we are saving the state money. Let her just stay. If anything happens, then take her back. We talked about the idea about how the community is safer with her working and her doing this work versus investing $80,000 a year for her to stay in prison because she is going to come out. All of those things. And the DA said to me when I was on set talking on her behalf in front of the sentencing hearing, he said, "Now I hate to quote scripture to a priest." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And he said, "But Caesar gets his due." And what I wanted to say to him is, don't worry, you didn't quote scripture to a priest. You misquoted scripture to a priest, which is worse, but you don't say anything. And then they sentenced her to 14 more years. And she left. She left making candles, and she went to prison. And 3.5 years later, with a lot of advocacy and a lot of community work, she was able to come back out. And the day that she came back into our community, she walked in the back and she started making candles again. It was like she held her breath for 3.5 years and she started working again. And I was just completely undone by it. And I went back and I was like, "Ty, how are you doing it? How do you forgive that much? How are you just not giving up, or you're bitter, or you just think the system is rigged, or you're not a part of it, or whatever it is? How do you do it?" She said, "It is community. I have never been to prison before where I had a whole group of sisters that went with me and made sure I was okay and that I was visited and I had letters and I had money on my commissary card, and it is healing." And it's many, many women like Ty and like Jovita and like Carly and like Tracy. That's the reason those numbers are that way. We don't hire women because we love making candles. We love the women, and they make amazing candles. They happen to. And it works. So, like I said, the events that we do are all part of this vision of how love is good business and how we can heal. And I just wanted to end with one last story. I'm a huge fan of Doris, and my husband's a singer-songwriter in Nashville. He has been since forever. And Doris just sent him a song that she just wrote, and they just put it to music. And I walked out this morning, I guess it was yesterday morning, I got up, and he records everything at the house, and he's all by himself. So he does he's doing drums, or he's doing piano, or he's playing guitar, or whatever. And I heard him you can't hear anything because it's in his ears. And I could just see him going, he just had a tambourine just going to town. And he was like, "It's Doris's new song." She's been a beautiful singer and a beautiful presence. And she coordinates all the events that we do and makes sure that the right women are assigned, that we're safe on the road, and that we're doing our work. Doris comes from the story of childhood trauma, like most of the women. She actually witnessed the death of her father on her, up close. And in her own words, she wandered a 10-block radius for more than 20 years on the streets of Nashville. And while there may not have been a prison wall, there were so many walls and barriers to keep her there. Finally, she comes into Magdalene. She's just joyful. You cannot kill hope in people. You cannot kill it. She had it all in her, and she's expressed it in this beautiful and wonderful way. She's helped programs start all over the country. I got to be with her the very first time we went to Florida to help open a program there. And she said, I have never seen ever the ocean. I was like, come on, let's go. And it was dark, and she was like, no way in hell am I going out there. And I was telling her, like, very rarely do sharks, like, crawl up on the beach and bite you. Nothing bad is going to happen. But she had to change wigs and go out with it all tied up the next morning. Got to be with her when her feet first hit those sugar sands. And Doris was just delighted. And when she actually stepped into the ocean for the first time and felt the tide against her legs, she just held her arms up and threw her head back, and she just said, has this been doing this my whole life? Right? I mean, all those years that she was walking in a circle on the streets, that tide was going in and out. I mean, as long as the moon has been spinning around this earth, that tide has been going in and out. And I want to say tonight that older and more powerful than that tide is love. But sometimes it takes a community to help us get to the shore to feel it. Thank you.
We've got time for some questions, so if you will please raise your hand and then wait for the microphone to get to you. So raise your hand. Come on, don't be shy.
Also, make sure you save enough time to do some shopping.
Well, we're going to promote your shopping for sure.
I just don't want anybody to feel rushed about shopping.
All right. Okay. Here's a question right over here.
Reverend Becca, thank you so much. You were talking about you had like 100 ladies on your wedding list. Can you talk about how they're selected for the program?
I can talk about that.
Okay.
My name's Tracy.
Here, let me buy that.
My name's Tracy. It's 3 ways. One, you court order. The next one is you walk in on your own. And the next one is you have to be
in prison.
In prison. So we go down each one. Whichever one is active, we pick one for each the category. And whichever one is active, that's how we pick them.
But there's no criteria as far as like mental health issues. There's no criteria on how long your record is or how long you've been on the streets. That we have women that we range from 18 to 53. I think that's the range right now. So we just had a woman that came from North Carolina. Sometimes there's emergencies. When she left her pimp, he shot her 6 times, and in the process she's lost her leg. Mm-hmm. And she really desperately needed a place to be. And she is one of the 4 that just started work at Thistle Farms, so she's been with us. You don't start work for the first 6 months. We pay a stipend, and as a matter of fact, when you come into the program, you're given money every week. It's not much, but it's enough to make sure that you're okay before you start work, so you don't work and you just work on yourself and you go get assessments and you start beginning slowly to look at what feels safe and what feels like your path. So the criteria is just we want a variety of places people are coming from, and the only criteria is you have a criminal history of trafficking and prostitution and addiction.
Question right back here, yes.
Again.
No, we got to have it. We got to record it, so we need the mic.
You mentioned that in the homes there's no authority figure. Could you say a little bit about how 8 women live together and make decisions without anyone being in charge? Or just what does the day look like?
Well,
Yep.
It looked like we get up, we all have meditation, we all eat together. Nobody is bigger. There's no big eyes, no little U's. We all at the same level. But if we have is something going on, we all try to come together and help that one lady out. And that's how we get through our day. I mean, it's not easy because any woman can walk out at any time. We just have to be accountable for ourselves, and we have to be accountable for the other women in the house too. So living on this side, it's hard. But through God and the community, we're making it through it. And with y'all.
There's also social workers and people who have lots of people that help, but they just work in the day. So the idea is that there's nobody that lives in the house except the women who are in community together. There's no one that lives in there. But there's tons of people that are available at any time for anything anybody needs, and everybody's on their own plan. They develop their plan, but they're on a plan. So like if it's to get your GED, there's going to be people there to help you get your GED.
Yes.
You know, I mean, so it's a program with structure. But the issue is not authoritative structure, it is servant structure, so that we're helping each other.
Yes, Tony, right here.
Do you work with other organizations that have part of what they do is some of the same stuff that you do?
Yes, we work with anybody that will work with us, anybody. Like when we have intensive outpatient therapy for people who are coming off of drugs, we don't do any of that. We are not a treatment center. We go to treatment centers. When people are in trauma for the rapes, and I have not met a woman coming off the streets ever who has not been raped. They go to the sexual assault center. Those are professional, beautiful people who are doing that work, and we pay them to do that work. So we are a community involved with all kinds of communities. Those are just two examples. But yes, we work with everybody we can. And to have more and more connections is important. And that's part of the reason these education and networking days are so important for us, to meet more and more partners on that journey. And so it could be that there's a group in Atlanta doing some similar work, and they just want to know this piece and this piece. We share all of that. Everything we have been given is a gift, and we try to just share it back. Here's all the forms. If you want to open a house and you want to know what the intake forms are, here's our grant language. Here's what our board structure and bylaws are. We share everything and work with anybody. Yes, ma'am.
Do any women in the house have children?
Yes. Is that, you want, yes.
Yeah. So, so what happens with the children? How are they handled?
Well, most women have lost custody of their children. Some women get pregnant. Some women still have custody of their children. And many women have children after they graduate. But really, reuniting moms and their babies is a very slow process. And we take it very, very seriously, so the kids are safe too. So, you know, visitation is a great thing. Custody takes a lot longer, and when you get custody, you are ready to move out. So the kids don't live in our house. There's Oasis in Northwest Arkansas. Moms and babies do live together. And if you want to look at, there's models where the babies can stay with their moms because they haven't lost custody of them. That's not the group that we are working with. We work with women in other programs where they're able to keep their babies and try to accommodate that. But in our residential facilities, people have visitation with their kids, but not custody. But like Carly had a baby afterwards, after she graduated and left. And, you know, I mean, people have families too after those 2 years.
One more question, and then we're going to shop. Yes, here's a question right back here.
And we'll be over here and we'll answer any other questions you have. It doesn't, we can do whatever. Maybe for you, you don't know.
As an Episcopal priest, does the church recognize and support your organization as a mission, or do they require you to sort of go out and pastor small congregations or something like that? How is the church involved?
Well, like I said, I've done real well with authority in my life. So I am a chaplain, which I think in the scale of hierarchy within the Episcopal Church is about the lowest rung you can achieve. I am a Thistle farmer at heart. I serve at Vanderbilt University. I've done my work at Thistle Farms community as a volunteer for the last 20 years. So I get paid to be a priest. I get paid to go out and speak and preach. It happens that I'm free to go on the road because I have a good group of folks who help at Vanderbilt, and so I don't have tons of requirements that keep me there. So I'm pretty free. It's just worked out really, really well. So I have a salary, and I have health insurance, and I'm free to go and do the work. And no one has said you can't do it. Like, we need you here to do this instead. So I've been very, very lucky. We've never had any general, like financial general support from a national body of a church very much. Maybe an offering that the women take up or something like that. The United Methodist women or the Episcopal women or something like that, but not anything formal. It's amazing how many women's groups support our work and how few men's groups support our work, as if prostitution and trafficking is a woman's issue.
Well, let's say...
On that positive note...
Yes, on that upper, let's just say happy birthday and happy shopping, and thank you so much
You are
for being here.
welcome.